Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mainstream Indie Music channel. We talk about all things indie music, and this week we have a very interesting, group, because it's a duo, a sister act, you could say, Tegan and Sara, and that's exactly what their names are as well. They are a Canadian indie pop duo, and this week we are going to talk about how these sisters made this happen, because how do you jump from just living a normal life to, full-blown entire nationwide tours? Well, that's how we're going to find out, and we're going to see how they have kept up the longevity of this group as well. They've been a band for quite some time, so that's what we're going to talk about this week. If you're new to this channel, welcome, and if you've been here before, I appreciate you guys listening always. So let's get into it. So how the band got started was both twins were still in junior high, I believe, and they started to record music literally on cassette tapes. If you guys are young enough or old enough, I should say, to remember, I remember I would do that from time to time, record a song on a cassette tape where you could literally push it into the cassette tape and hit record. And you would get such bad quality audio, but it worked. That's what we had at the time. And Tegan and Sara took advantage of it. So they recorded a few songs. They wanted to be able to broadcast their talent because they really thought they had it. And what they did next, kind of continuing the theme of using what they had at their disposal, they recorded more music in their high school's recording room. For those of us, if you're with me, if you're with Tegan and Sara, and you played music, you know that there were rooms. I know at my school there were practice rooms that had like studio recording quality in them. It was nothing special, but it was pretty much like a tiny soundproof room almost that you could practice in. And I imagine that's where they decided to come together. Must have had some awesome music teachers there as well because they were okay with it. And they decided to record even more material inside of that kind of makeshift room and studio. And so they did that, and their word of mouth started to get around so that they got on a local big performance. They got to perform in front of a big crowd in front of their hometown, and they were starting to gain momentum now. In 1999, when they were 19 years of age, they finally recorded their debut album with a smaller recording artist studio, and it was noticed. Elliot Roberts, who is a very famous record producer from the Los Angeles area, actually heard a copy of their debut album, and he liked it so much, he literally flew up there to meet them and signed them on and said, hey, I'm going to help you release music. And so they released a second album, and it's pretty interesting because through that time still, both of them did not have a manager. Both of them were making their own decisions. They kept on producing more and more music and more albums. It seemed like that's all the both of them wanted to do, was literally they would just write albums, they would release it, they would tour, and then they would just write more music. They just really enjoyed it. And they did have the support of some of their labels. They did have difficulty. I remember doing research into this while preparing this video. They had one album where they had to switch up their producer just simply because the record company got bought out, and it was a Canadian record company. And due to some kind of legalities, they couldn't release music in the United States. So they quickly kind of had to pivot and release music with another album record label as well in order to, of course, to get the album out there. But along the way, they had multiple people help them and feature on their albums, including multiple members of the band Death Cab for Cutie. I know Chris Wall was on there. I believe it was Death Cab's drummer also helped produce their music as well. So they were just growing and growing, especially in the indie scene. The mid-2010s now at this point, when they were in their 30s, was really when they started to gain momentum, though. Their hit single Closer came out in 2012, 2013. And they also did music for the Lego movie around that time. Everything is awesome. And again, regardless, yes, it was written for a kids' movie, the Lego movie, but you have to know, that song. It was really, really big around that period of time. And just from the fact of how big that movie was, it just got them more and more recognition. And they didn't stop. They still kept on releasing new music all the time, from the mid 2010s. And it just kept on repeating the process. Kind of taking a pause from their history here. You really just have to appreciate how hardworking these twin sisters are, because it just seemed like they were nonstop. They made music all the way, what are we now in this history? We're in the late 2010s, and they got started literally around the turn of the century. So for over 15, almost 20 years now at this point, they have just been nonstop touring and performing constantly. They just won't stop. Around 2019, right before COVID, they kind of started to shift their focus as musicians. They still, even to this day, produce and make new music, but it's almost like they finally started to slow down and shift their attention to content that they thought was important. For example, they made songs that they found while digging through their personal lives in preparation for their book that they released. And it was all like cassette demos that they just reimagined, which is pretty cool. They also have made several TV shows for Amazon that is based off of their lives growing up, like kind of pretty much during their teenage years. So that's pretty cool as well. Now, both Tegan and Sara are very big into the LGBT plus community. They speak out against it, or for it very, very much. And again, that's kind of the shift in focus, like I said, like around the 2020s. It's kind of like they finally started to slow down, and now they're making content more so for things that they feel are important for their fans and for other people to know. So even to this day, still active as a band, and that's what I got to say about Tegan and Sara. I would say if you are going to check them out, definitely check out Closer. I know it's kind of their pop hit, but definitely one to check out. But also check out Walking with a Ghost. That is all that I have for this week. I want to thank y'all for support. I got a very special video coming out soon, and I will see y'all next week. Peace.